So hello, I'm Chris Steele. I'm one of the noise and vibration inspectors for the HSE. We're now 3 months into our second phase of our inspection plan, and I wanted to give you some updates on what was going on. I'm also probably going to tell you that I'll give you more updates for the UK Hearing Conservation Association, hopefully at the main conference in the autumn, where we'll start to see some more numbers coming in. But I thought I would start off today just by telling you about what it is that we're trying to achieve, what are we trying to get to with these inspections. So the assumption that can often be made when HSE is speaking to stakeholders and advisors and duty holders is that this is how the flow of information works, that we sit in our government offices and pass out information to stakeholders and advisors who then tell the duty holders what to do, and then that filters down through to the employee's health. What we've found, certainly with the workplace noise intervention plan over the last 2 or 3 years, is that actually the picture's a lot more difficult, a lot more involved, and there's a lot more people in this process who may not necessarily be saying the things that we would hope they would say, or sometimes saying things which are better than what other people are saying. And that's what we've come across, and what we're kind of trying to get to is to get a consistent message on workplace noise from the regulators, so from ourselves and local authorities and the other regulatory bodies, from advisors, from duty holders and stakeholders. And the way that we're trying to do that is to make sure that third-party advisors provide services that are consistent with the regulations, that we give better training to our inspectors inside and outside HSE, so we get focused enforcement on defined problems. And then the last thing that we're trying to do is push a consistent, clear message on workplace noise so duty holders know what to do. The trouble with that when you're looking at it from outside is that it might seem that we're 1 minute we're doing one thing, the next minute we're doing something else. But the truth is that we've got a target that we're aiming for, but we're having to adjust the course of what we do as we go through this process. And I'll touch on that a little bit later when we come back to where we are in the process, the phase process. So I'll cover 3 things today. I'm going to cover where we are now, how we're improving our message on noise, and what inspectors are asking for. And as ever, I'll finish up with a little request to you on things that you could do to assist that. So where are we just now? Well, as you probably know, you've probably seen this before, we've got this 4-phase plan in operation. We've done phase 1, where we've collected a lot of noise reports and done some broad spectrum inspections. We're now into phase 2, which we're calling control. So we're essentially saying, all right, let's go back to the ones that were poor performers in phase 1, where there's matters of evident concern, and carry on giving the same messages to these people and see if they've moved forward. We're now introducing enforcement on simple controls. So a lot of the older inspectors and the more seasoned inspectors will be doing this anyway, but we want to improve the training and the abilities of our own inspectors. And we're starting off by giving them things that are simple to understand and simple for the duty holders to understand. The bit that I've put in red there is the enforcement on the third-party providers. That's in red because that's the bit that myself and the other workplace noise inspectors are getting involved in, and that's why it's important to us. And then the last thing we've got in there is gather and control efficiencies. So this is a slightly different thing to the enforcement aspect of it, where we use the enforcement interactions as an opportunity to gather information to see what people are doing. And we're really quite keen to see whether or not people are making any effort to do this. So the things that we're consistently going to be doing throughout the whole of the 4-phase process is we're always going to be promoting this CUF acronym. This is effectively what we're saying to the duty holders and the employees about their hearing protection, to get a better message out there that if you're using hearing protection, it needs to be in good condition, it needs to be used all the time, it needs to fit the ear, and it's fit for purpose. And I suspect most of you are sick to death of hearing me saying that, and you could rattle that off yourself in your own head. The inspection plans have given us information which have required us to adjust what we're doing. And again, I think you've probably seen these, but I think they bear repeating. One is that we found very few duty holders, very few companies were checking the audibility when they had hearing protection on their employees. And we think there's a potential safety risk for that. The second thing that we found was that there was a very low appreciation that there is control advice on the HSE's website, so not just generic but specific to different types of machinery and equipment, and we would really like to see an uptick in that. And again, as you know, from other UK hearing conservation meetings, we found that a lot of the third-party consultant reports are poor. And as you're aware, at UK Hearing Conservation Association, you've done your bit to try and deal with that by publishing a buyer's guide. We are really telling people to use this a lot. I'd be kind of interested to see if you're getting any uptick in the usage of it, because I'm certainly telling duty holders to use it and telling stakeholders to get a hold of it. When it comes to directly interacting with the people who are doing third-party consultancy, again, BOHS have done their part and have got this template that they've published, which they worked on with us and the Institute of Acoustics. And this is really for the consultants. It's not for the duty holders. This is not the sort of thing that I think would ever end up on HSE's website, because it potentially could confuse someone who runs a small workshop into thinking they have to do that. No, this is for people who are charging money to do consultancy work. And this is the bedrock for me as an inspector, as the documentation that I use when I go and speak to consultants about how they're providing reports and what they could do to make them better. So, how are we improving our message on noise? What's happening within HSE? When we started this, one of the concerns that was raised, particularly with the hearing protection manufacturers, was, well, there's nothing much on the HSE website to say that there's stuff going on about noise. That is getting better. If you go and have a look at our website now, you will find information about the inspection programs and what HSE is trying to do. There's a couple of articles up there on our news page, and we're in the process just now, fingers crossed, of getting a campaign page set up, which should have a load of other goodies on it. But I'll tell you more about that, hopefully, once it's up there. You may not be aware, but HSE, with our what used to be science division, has relaunched the management of exposure in workplaces course. This is primarily aimed at duty holders. It's quite different to the course that we used to run. I think myself and Peter Wilson used to do one which was much more focused on control and how to implement controls. This one is effectively about how you would manage and understand the regulations, because we've, as I say, we've found that the level of understanding was a lot lower than what we were expecting. In addition to these sorts of things, we're trying to get a bit more up to date, a bit more with it. So we're trying to put stuff on YouTube, and we've got some videos up there already with my colleague Jackie talking to employees about how to use their hearing protection. In addition to that, we're also engaging with specific sectors to try and improve their information that they have. So we've done stuff with the utility sector, talking to managers and employees about, you know, what's the most obvious things that they could do. The other thing that we're doing across the piece, and which we will carry on doing over this year, is talking to stakeholders and doing presentations like this. So we're now into July, but as of January this year, we've spoken to about 3,000 stakeholders so far this year, and we're going to continue doing that at these types of events. Probably the most significant one that was done was by my colleague Rachel Van Brasseau, and it was advice for people who have hearing aids or hearing loss, and how they could then use that with their hearing protection. This is a question that actually comes up quite a lot from our inspectors when they are speaking to people on site. And so if you are looking for information on that, that is where it is. But as I say, we're doing more, and there's more information coming. They're venturing into the world of TikTok, and so there should be some sort of short videos going up there, which are really aimed at people who are on site, the workers themselves, to try and capture their imagination. There's been a sense that if we keep trying to talk to the same people in the same way, then our message is not necessarily going to get through. So we're going to be trying this to see if we can improve our messaging on workplace noise. And then the stuff that you probably won't see unless you are a local authority inspector is that we're in the process just now of updating the guidance that we give to local authorities, because when we move into the next phase, which is going to be about the sort of difficult sectors, the ones where it's loud and there's not a lot you can do, well, that definitely falls into the realm of bars and nightclubs, and their product is the music, it is the noise, in inverted commas. And so we're providing updated guidance to local authority inspectors through material, videos, that type of thing, and updated guidance documents. And I think once that's live, which I'm hoping it will be in November, I'd like to tell you more about that. So that's what's going on just now. And we've got some other things that are hopefully happening. But what are the inspectors asking for this year? So I suspect, again, some of you have already seen these types of things, but I think it definitely bears repeating. Our inspectors are going to be out and they will be asking about audibility of alarms. They're primarily looking at waste and recycling sites, the larger sort of MRF places, because we've seen some issues there. But if they see these problems on other sites, they will raise them. The trigger for them is, are people wearing hearing protection? Is there an expectation that signage up that hearing protection should be worn? And are there people walking about interacting with things like vehicles, forklift trucks or reversing vehicles? Or do we have machinery? Do we have a work task where people are communicating? And what are they going to do about that? If there's some sort of audible alarm that they should be able to hear and they can't hear it from the hearing protection, have they done some tests? But you'll notice the middle one in there is a fire alarm station. That's on a construction site. We are not responsible for checking fire alarms. But there is a concern on construction sites about, can people hear these fire alarm stations, particularly as it's quite a dynamic environment. The other thing that we're also looking out for is if anybody's using our calculator, if that pink box appears with the warning sign on it, what are they going to do about it? And I think this is usually the point where a lot of duty holders get stuck. They use this calculator, that little box appears, and they assume that the way to deal with that, or the only way to deal with that, is to adjust the hearing protection. And typically what they might find is that they can't get something that's low enough in terms of its reduction to hit the targets that they're looking for. But that's not actually what we're saying. Yes, do that, and if that works, that's great. But actually, if you've potentially got an audibility issue, we want that to be checked. How would they check it? Well, the first thing that we absolutely expect is that they try to separate workers from vehicles, that type of thing. So it may be dealt with through the management regulations or the workplace regulations. But for us, for our inspectors, good enough for us is that they do a check, and that check doesn't have to be much more than them being able to show that the worker can hear a warning signal when they're wearing their hearing protection. So for an inspector, it would be about asking the employer, have you done that check? And then going and speaking to the employees to see if that's been done. And ideally, you'd want that written down somewhere in the risk assessment. We're going to be asking about compressed air systems to see if noise controls have been adopted. We have been talking about this for quite some time. It's something that's on our website and in our guidance. It's quite old, and we were surprised to find that it's still something that isn't widely adopted. Now, there may be reasons for that, and there are credible reasons why people may not want to use low noise nozzles, etc. But we're coming across issues like this where, some of the nozzles have got low noise nozzles on them, and other ones have just got a very simple orange directional nozzle on it. These are pretty obvious to spot. They're loud, and we know that something can be done about them. Our inspectors are looking at the system in general. They will ask about the exhausts. This is the sort of thing that they're likely to see, although we are saying to them, you're probably going to struggle to find these things. They're usually tucked around the back of machinery. So it tends to be a question about, well, if you're going to be looking at your low noise nozzles, you should probably have the person who's doing that have a look at the silencers that get put in. But we've got a couple of other things that typically crop up. One of them is vacuum generators. These can be really quiet, but not if the silencers, which are the two bits that look like cigars, have been broken off of them. And we actually see that quite a lot, where maybe one of the silencers has been removed or it's been damaged, and something which started off being very quiet suddenly becomes something which is quite noisy. And then we've got them to look out for just the persistent sound of compressed air being run and leaking out, because it's noisy, and B, it's a terrible waste of energy. And so these are the sorts of things that they may be looking for. The third thing that we've got is these control lists. So we will be looking for control lists. This is what duty holders are doing or told to do to reduce their noise. And again, we've been asking for them. We've been suggesting that they do them. We've been talking to people in stakeholder groups about, do you have a list of controls that you're working on? There's been a bit of confusion as to what we mean by that. Effectively, it doesn't have to be a hugely involved thing. It might be something that's in your risk assessment. It might be something that's in the report that you've got from your third-party provider. But for me, it's a list of things that you intend to do. Maybe check the HSE case studies this week, make sure all the blades are sharp next week, do some maintenance during your downtime, and then replace a piece of machinery when it needs replacing, and have that list that you can work on. We're asking for these because we want to gather in that information and see, well, first of all, does anybody have them? And the messaging that we're putting out to say you should have them, is that actually working? And then once we get a hold of these lists, if they exist, we want to see whether or not they're primarily just generic information, which doesn't really give the duty holder anything specific to do, or whether they're actually getting advice which is specific to them, specific to where they work. And we're also interested to see if particular types of control are common in one industry and therefore should be being used everywhere, but also if types of controls that are common in one industry could transfer to another one. I said earlier on that we'll be providing inspections on third-party providers. So these are the people who get paid to do workplace noise surveys. I'm going to let you have a wee kind of glimpse behind the curtain here and show you some stuff that HSE is keeping. The first thing that might be of a surprise to you, but hopefully not too much of a surprise, is that we are maintaining a log of all the poor performing consultants across multiple health disciplines. So whether it's for noise or dust or anything else that comes into the purview of the health unit, which I'm part of, and most of the occupational hygienists at HSE are also part of. When we come across poor consultancy, once we've dealt with them, the name goes into that log, and it allows our general inspectors and other inspectors to see, oh, we've dealt with this consultant on noise in the past. We're now seeing that there's an issue with them on vibration, and that then gives an indication of whether we should be taking more attention on them. You may not be aware, but we've actually been ramping this up over a number of years. So this is the inspections across all third-party consultancies, so everything, noise, dust, vibration, whatever. As you can see, we're moving up into higher amounts in 2018, 24 and 25, and we're now starting to do the workplace noise intervention, and we're now starting to pick up on them. So we started that in April. So I can show you some of the results from the stuff that we've been looking at in April. So these are the enforcement actions taken on third-party consultants providing workplace noise reports since, or up to rather, basically this month. We have taken about 25 consultants to task. About 11 of them got verbal advice. 9 got written action taken against them. That could be an improvement notice or moving up from a knock letter. 2, there was no action, and 3, we're still waiting to put the finishing touches on what we're doing there. But we will continue to do that. But the thing that we're obviously seeing is that the ones that we're going to are the ones where there's clearly a problem, and so that's been borne out from the report information that we're getting. So, what can UK Hearing Conservation Association members do to help? Well, number one, we've got this new content. There's going to be more of it coming, and I'll keep you abreast of when that happens. But it's there for you to use, to point to when you're speaking to employers, to duty holders, to stakeholder groups, to say this is what HSE is saying. So the more that we put up there that echoes our message, the more opportunities you have to demonstrate that information is available and that people should be aware of it. We want you to keep talking about CUF. We want to keep that message going for the next 2 to 3 phases of the intervention plan, so that we've sort of instilled that in people's idea that whenever they pick up a set of earmuffs or a pair of earplugs, that they understand the condition of use, how it's fit, and if it's fit for purpose. We are genuinely worried about this audibility of warning signals while people are wearing hearing protection. When this goes wrong, people get badly hurt and people get killed. And so if it's something that you can pick up on, if it's something that you can mention, then we would really like you to do that. As I said, what our expectations are pretty low at the moment. It is simply a case of, make sure they can hear those signals. And if they can't, then you maybe have to look into what to do. We absolutely want you to promote the Buyer's Guide. I am doing that. It's on your UK Hearing Conservation Association website. I think it's also on the UKHCA website as well. But it's something that we definitely want to make sure that people understand. The thing that we've been saying to consultants is, if you do this type of work, then fill this in and send it out to the duty holder to show what your capabilities are. If you're refusing or you don't do this type of work, if you said someone phones you up and asks you to quote, but you say you can't manage to do it, we're asking, can you send that document out to them so that when they go to somebody else, they can ask those questions and they can get somebody who knows what they're doing. The next thing is about this compressed air control and trying to raise awareness of that. And we've had some support from the industry who supply these products. They're putting messaging out on this as well. So if you've maybe seen some of that on LinkedIn and some of the comments that they're making, but it's certainly something that our inspectors will be looking for. So if you're speaking to duty holders or employers, you can tell them about this and give them a heads up. And then the last thing that we would ask you to kind of help us with is promoting these control lists to say to the employers, to the company owners, you've got a list of simple stuff that you're working on, have a look at the HSE's operational guidance, which again is available copy on the UKHCA website, where they can look at their industry and see what HSE's expectations are. And just filling in those very basic things that they can do about checking the case studies on the HSE website, making sure that their consumables are in good order and doing maintenance on their equipment. So try to tell you where we are now. We're trying to improve our messaging around noise at work, and we're into phase 2 of our inspection plan, which is about our inspectors going out and seeing whether people are actually implementing control. How are we improving our message? We're trying to get more information out onto different channels, ones that we've maybe not used before, to improve the understanding of what HSE's expectations are and try and align that between what our inspectors are up to within HSE and outside of HSE. And then what's this inspection year about? Well, it's about our general inspectors asking about compressed air, about audibility, and about control lists. And it's also about us as specialist inspectors going out and taking poor consultants to task. As you saw, some of that is verbal advice. Our primary aim is to get the consultants into a position where they're doing the right thing. We're not here to catch people out. We're here to try and make sure that people aren't made ill. So I will finish with the typical slide that I always finish with, which is my contact details, because I know that some people don't like to ask HSE inspectors questions at events like this. So if you want to speak to me, there's my email address and my LinkedIn location. Thank you very much.
Excellent, thank you, Chris. So we're going to move over to Leah now, who I think we've got back in the room. I don't know.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we've got you there. So
fantastic.
Yeah, so Leah's just going to give an update on the UK Hearing Conservation Association and the things they've been up to. So I don't know if have you got slides you're sharing there, Leah?
I haven't. No, apologies. No, you'll just have to listen to my dulcet tones.
No worries at all. Yeah, well, I'll mute myself and over to you, and then I've seen we've got a question here. So once you're done, I've got a question that kick off the Q&A, and then please feel free to follow on from the question that's already been asked, and we'll delve into that afterwards. So over to you, Leah.
Thank you so much, Lee, and thank you very much, Chris. I do apologise for the technical difficulties. We'll get there soon, I'm sure. We're not quite ready for spaceships yet, but let's get the team's connection right. So I do apologise, but anyway, good afternoon and a very warm welcome to everybody who's joining us on our very first webinar for the Hearing Conservation Association. It's going to be the first of many series, so do make sure that you touch base with our LinkedIn's to find out what is up and coming next. So for those who are probably new to this network or on the call who are not familiar with the Hearing Conservation Association, we are a multidisciplinary charity operating across a range of sectors, from traditionally loud environments like your construction and engineering, through into manufacturing and farming, science, technology, hospitality, and notwithstanding the music and entertainment industries. Just want to highlight again what our mission is as the Hearing Conservation Association. It's very simple, and it's just as it says on the tin, which is to preserve and protect our nation's hearing health. We aim to prevent damage and other noise-related conditions by delivering practical, evidence-based and cost-effective solutions. But we also know hearing health doesn't start and stop at the workplace. It's just as critical during your leisure time, as we've got in the Q&A there, which is why we place a huge emphasis on sort of recreational health and safety as well through our music and entertainment special interest groups. And then, of course, just the vital education of not just young people, but ourselves throughout the workplaces that we are in. So, as I said before, please make sure you touch base with us on LinkedIn to find out what's happening, because we'd love for everybody to come and join us on this journey by collaborating and committing to the mission. Of course, we can ensure everybody is heard. Pardon the pun, I cannot help myself sometimes. So just for some updates then for closing this session today, we've got our November conference coming up, which is our first and foremost priority at the moment, because November will come fast as summer is going just as fast. So again, November is our conference. We have this annually. This has taken place. This will be our fourth now. It's been ongoing since 2022. So yeah, get in touch. Our early bird registration is open, and we really do encourage you to take advantage of any early bird rates that are happening. We also have our AGM coming up next year in April, which is usually held at the BOHS headquarters. So please, again, look out for that. Look out for that advertised on LinkedIn. And then finally, just really, we've got a lot going on with regards to content and education. And as I say, this webinar is the first of many to come. So, you know, if you're looking to dive deeper into our past topics, present, future, have a look on our website. We've still got a fantastic range of presentations available to review. And alternatively, you can have a look at the pre-recorded sessions over on the BOHS YouTube channel. So you can have a look at all our critical information and sessions that are coming forward at your convenience. So that's really all from the HCA's update, but please, I do encourage you to go and have a nosy at what we're doing, what we're getting up to, and how you think you could maybe help us. Thank you so much for joining.
Excellent, thank you, Leah. So with the email I'll send after this with the recording, I can put some useful links to UKHCA website and the event listing for the conference later this year. So yeah, keep an eye out for that. I can try and send it out. Like I say, depending on how quick YouTube wants to play this afternoon, it'll be this evening or tomorrow morning. So like I said, we've got a question in the chat box there. We're well ahead of time, we're only half an hour in. So yeah, we've got time for some questions if there's any more after this. So the first question we've got is, how are you dealing with the fitness industry where there is, in my experience, willful ignoring of hearing health and dangerous decibel levels in all classes people attend for their health that are even remotely aerobic? They refuse to turn the music to healthy levels or measure it at all, and they turn up the decibel levels through the class to say it's motivational and that people like it. Local authorities don't seem to care about it. So is that something you've come across yourself, Chris, or have you got a response to that?
So yeah, it's something we've seen in the past. Actually, the local authorities do deal with that issue a lot, but mainly through noise nuisance issues. So they do have an awareness of it, and they have done for a number of years. But I think that the point that Mary Jane's making is that it's, you know, are they looking at it as a workplace health issue? And yeah, I think they would probably admit themselves that they haven't done that they've mainly looked at it from a noise nuisance perspective. That is something that we are. That's something that you know they're kind of working on, and that we have you know worked with them in the past on these things. So I don't know. I mean, HSE doesn't regulate on that type of thing typically, unless it's a venue that's owned by the council. And so it's not something that I've seen as an HSE inspector. So you probably need to speak to a local authority inspector to see how often they're coming across that sort of thing. But what we are doing, I think you might have noticed in one of the slides that I put up, was that we were refreshing the local authority advice on workplace noise. The document that they had was quite old. The guidance document that we'd given them, the operational guidance document, was quite out of date, and also it was just a document. So what we've done is we've produced some training material, some training videos for them, and an updated guidance document. And I'm hoping, because we were discussing this yesterday, I'm hoping that what we can maybe do for the local authorities is run some training courses for them, because I think this is another thing where you know where HSE could do more for the councils by giving them training material and training events to assist the inspectors there, because they're kind of left to their own devices in some senses, and so HSE really needs to kind of help as much as we can. So if there's anybody who's on this call who's from a local authority, then yeah, I'm totally up for giving some training material and telling you what HSE is up to, and hopefully come November that new material will be available to them, and then myself and the other people that are working on it will try and give as much information as possible to help them through that.
Excellent. Thank you. I've got another question here. Hi, Chris. Are local authorities always the regulatory authority for noise at work, regs enforcement within premises providing music entertainment?
So, oh God, well, I'm not great on this because this is not what I really do. But there's an agreed. So, I mean, we HSE typically does what we classify as industrial workplaces, agricultural, construction type workplaces. Local authorities have a responsibility for pretty much everything else. So your offices, your retail premises, that sort of thing. I think there is a page on our website which will tell you who the most likely regulator is. So, it's different people regulate offshore. Regulate on marine stuff. We regulate offshore, but then we've got other regulators in marine. Regulator for ships and boats and that type of thing. So there's a number of different regulators, ORR and ONR. So you would maybe have to go and look at that to see who's regulating on what. The one thing that I do know though is that if it's a local authority owned venue, so whether it's maybe a theatre or a gym, then it tends to fall into HSE's purview to regulate, because obviously you can't regulate on yourself. So I remember once I had the joy of going to an HMRC office to go and issue an improvement notice on their control of noise from headsets, and I was terrified that I was going to get my tax checked for the next 4 years, but that didn't happen.
Well, yeah, thank you for that. And we've got a few more questions coming in. So we've got, what is the opinion on level-dependent electronic hearing protection systems such as Eve that apply the correct level of protection automatically and have inbuilt noise monitoring systems at the ear? I'm quite favourable to these types of things. I think I touched on the stuff that my colleague Rachel did on people with hearing loss and the use of hearing protection, and that's certainly somewhere that if you have to wear hearing aids but you still want to be able to give yourself hearing protection, that might be a solution. And I think if you go and look at that video, she gives a good explanation of how you could marry these two things together. So that would be for people with hearing loss, but also for general situations in terms of situational awareness. If you've got a lot of variability in the noise level, then it can be something that can be quite useful. So where you've got workers that are moving around a lot, the noise levels are changing, they have to be situationally aware. These can be a good option. So, we don't, like any product, we don't say you must use this one or you must use that one, but we're encouraged by what they can achieve with these types of things. Thank you. We've got a question here about where the regulations state the local authorities to be the regulatory authority. Any advice? I don't know if you can see there that there was a link put in by somebody else. I don't know if that.
I think that might be
that covers it.
I think that might be the location where it tells you who regulates on what. But as I say, there is the odd anomaly. Like there's a kind of there are some anomalies in there, so but that will give you a general indication of what is supposed to be done. That's ranged and the rest of stuff.
Okay then. Well, thank you very much, Wayne, for popping that link in the chat there. And we've got another couple of questions. Hi, Chris. Do you have any experience with noise levels in, for example, orchestra rehearsal rooms or university music practice rooms? What noise levels can be expected there, and what are the recommended control measures? Thank you for your input.
Okay, so first of all, yes, I've worked on a few of these things in the past. If you're looking for HSE guidance on this, there's HSG 260, I think it is, 260, yeah, which is the sound solutions document on music noise. That's got some advice in there for orchestral rehearsal rooms. If you're looking for guidance that goes beyond that, actually the BBC has got some very useful guidance documents on this. They've done a lot of work in the past. I think they used to have their own acoustics department years ago. They used to work with a guy who worked there. So there's a BBC document on orchestras and controlling exposure to sound. But yeah, HSE's got its own guidance document, Sound Solutions. That'd be the first thing I would have a look at. It's got some case studies in there for rehearsal rooms and for musical practice rooms, educational music. And then if you want to get a bit more information on good practice, then the BBC guidance for orchestras is also available.
Thank you very much. Like I say, we'll try and collate all these questions and put together kind of a resource pack on all the things, all the conversations we're having during the webinar today. So keep an eye out for that. We've got another question here. On what evidence does HSE base their regulation that 85 decibels is fine for 8 hours?
All right, there. Oh, believe me. So, yeah, it's, oh God, I can't remember. Everything that we're doing is based off of there's like, I think it's BS, I think it's ISO 1999, I think. Again, I'm not sure if I'm completely right about that, but there's, we based it off of international standards where they've taken cohorts of people and looked at their hearing loss over time and over exposure. I think maybe the point that the VG's kind of circling around there is, well, how confident are we of that? I know Paul Pitts, who recently left HSE, did some studies on some newer things to see whether we should be adjusting the action values based on newer evidence that I think was coming out of Australia. But the decision that I think was made at the time was we felt that wasn't going to have an impact on it. There are issues around about these things as ever. As you would imagine, it's based on a cohort of people, quite a large one across a number of different countries. But we're talking about data that's quite old now. It's based on people that, if you looked at the demographic of them, they're probably heavily skewed towards just men, and also probably heavily skewed towards people that might have been exposed themselves to some pretty horrific noise levels during the Second World War. So there's maybe a question around about whether there should be adjustment on that, but we're fairly confident that this is we're still going to have these problems. I did see a paper from China that came out more recently. So the issue that we've got is that people are wearing hearing protection now, so it confounds any cohort that you would get. But the people that I saw from China, where they were able to get a pretty sizable cohort of people who've not been wearing hearing protection, still sort of tied in with the 85 dB for 8 hours. But as you know, the lower action value is 80. That's the point at which we think there might be problems occurring. And 85 is the point at which we would absolutely demand health surveillance and hearing protection. How those numbers were came to was something that was decided years before I started working with HSE through European Union activity, and there's probably folk out there that could tell you all the ins and outs of what actually happens, but I'm not one of them. So HSE farmed out decisions on decibel levels through 10 to 10 hours of 20 years ago. Apparently, yeah, that's so when the new guidance came in, when the new regulations came in, there was an allowance to 2008 for the entertainment industry to not need to be compliant with them. I think what we've found is that they've not been as quick at responding to it, and it's one of the reasons why we're trying to do a bit more in the entertainment sector. And I think you might be aware that the Nighttime Industry Association is also trying to raise awareness of this. The level of awareness about noise risk in the entertainment sector is pretty low, certainly among bars and clubs. So they're probably not even aware that they're supposed to have things like health surveillance. So we are looking at that as being something that we're going to try and do stuff on in the third phase, which is, the difficult phase, the people who have got a noise issue but can't reduce their noise.
Cool. Thank you very much for that as well. There's been nothing else come through. But like I said, when I send the email out later, if there are any questions that have come to mind since we've wrapped up, please feel free to reply to that email and I can pass on any questions on to Chris. Just a quick reminder, can you remind us of the name of the person with the hearing aids and hearing protection video on YouTube?
Yeah, so it's Rachel Van Bestow. It's actually run through the RNID. So if you go and have a look at their YouTube channel, you should find it there. It's about an hour long. If you've got hearing aids and you need to use hearing protection, I think it's a really good place to start because it's quite an informative presentation and it'll give you good advice on that.
Cool. Just give it a second. If there's nothing else from either yourself, Chris, or you, Leah, I'm happy to say give you 20 minutes back your afternoon. Like I say, any questions you've got, please feel free to email us, reply to the email that I'll send out later or tomorrow morning. And any questions I can pass on to Chris, and we can build like a little resource pack off the back of these as well. So all these conversations are stored somewhere and just don't get lost into the ether. So with that, I'll leave you to it. Like I say, give you a bit of time back. Thank you once more for joining. Keep an eye out on the BOHS website, the UKHCA website, for any future events, webinars, events that we're holding. And I'll wish you a good day. And that's it, really.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate it.
Nice one. Thank you, and speak soon.
Thank you. Take care.